You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast. I'm Michael from Arizona, and with me always are my good friends,
Jay from the hills of Texas.
And AK Mike in Texas.
How goes it, everybody? Did you have a good 4th of July?
Yeah, I got all my digits and fingers and toes. So
that's good news. You didn't burn the house down?
Didn't burn the house down. I didn't explode too many things.
No, that's good.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Mike?
Oh, yeah, we did the
What'd you
same
do?
thing. Didn't lose any fingers as well. I'm good.
All right.
I'm
Well,
covered.
we got all that going for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you go out on the lake or anything? Or
I did. I took. I have a Dragonfly, which is I think a Hobby King's version of the North Star, and tried to fly off
Right.
the water. But I think my last accident with it has put it in some bad shape for as the angle of attack on the prop. So I
Oh.
think I need to make some more adjustment there. I did already do some adjustment, but I think it needs more.
okay,
It
gotcha.
keeps trying to be like that. What was that sub from Bottom of the Sea? It kept diving into the water. That's what this one does. Instead of taking off the water, this one dives into the water.
Yeah,
Well, I
exactly.
was actually able to take it off one time, and I don't know what changed between the one and the other time. Like it might have been the battery was not good enough because some of the batteries I use in that one, because it's in the water, I don't use my very bestest batteries. 'Cause
Sure.
if I lose it or whatever, I don't want to lose a good battery. So I don't always use the best batteries possible. And so it may have just been a bad battery, didn't have enough engine for it. But
It didn't fill full of water, did it? 'Cause
well,
that's
one time
happened
it did.
before where-
One time it did.
Yeah.
I
And then you're like, it won't take off. Well, that's because it's full of water. You're just
I
like
nosed it in.
flying around with a.
I nosed it in. We were trying to hand launch it because it wouldn't fly off the water, and I nosed it in pretty good. So it filled up with water. But, we do the things that we do to our planes to make them
Sure.
work after they've been submarined like that.
Dump it out.
Yeah, and it worked. Yeah, it works fine. It dumped it out.
Did you put a cap on the front like a water bottle, and then you just pour out the water and put the cap back on?
What was really funny is I was pulling
like
it
that.
out of the water, and I was like, I wonder if it has any water in it. And, I sort of tilted it back, and because the blade had the prop has hit the back of the wing, it made a little hole. And so the water started coming out of that hole. I was like, well,
Nice.
I guess there was
That's
water
okay.
in there.
I guess so. See, so that second time that didn't take off, it may have been a big waterlogged.
No,
piece
it
of
wasn't waterlogged. It
foam.
was really just, like I said, it was just not flying right.
Well, you had some other exciting news, not really podcast related, but you actually own a paraglider.
Yeah, it's a paramotor because I use a motor.
Paramotor, okay.
But there is such a
paramotor.
thing
I
as
gotcha.
paraglider, but I have a paramotor.
Right.
So
And you were able to solo it, right?
Yep. Well, you in my case, it's only a single person thing. So whenever you fly, it's a solo flight. And
Gotcha.
I've had 7 flights so far, and
Nice.
So that means the instructor's still helping me at this point. And supposedly
Turn left. That's what he's helping.
Well,
He's
I
on
have
the
a helmet
ground
on.
yelling
Actually, I have a helmet on. He has a radio, and
okay.
he's
Oh, I
telling me what
gotcha.
to do. And so it's true. I mean, when I bring the wing up to fly, he's like, "Get on the throttle, go, 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 go," and trying to get me to focus on the right thing.
That sounds like us instructing
Sure.
some people.
Exactly. So he's trying to get me to focus.
More throttle, more throttle, more throttle.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's exactly what he said. One of my flights recently, I had a little bit of a challenge. One of the something after the brake line, and it got caught in the risers. So what that means is, as I was taking off, it was actually pulling on that brake, which is
Oh, right.
okay, except for if you're not pulling equally with the other brake, you turn. So
Right.
my takeoff was kind of a left-hand sweep, and so
I'm in the NASCAR track.
and he was a little nervous because I was flying towards cars and trees and people and stuff, and I wasn't really worried about it because I knew I was above all that at the time. But he's trying to tell me what to do, which is right, and yet I couldn't really do what he was asking me to do because it was stuck. So at some point I just got really high in the air, which is how you manage these problems. You get up in the air, and,
right?
And I was able to, basically unstick the brake. And so once I did that,
so it's very, very much indicative of the flying field when you and I are flying, and I'm like, do this.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, it's just like
making
RC plane, except for you're in it. Yeah. But
yes, you are the RC airplane.
Yeah,
right?
I am the RC.
He's
Yep,
flying you.
yep.
There you go.
But he doesn't have.
Well, that's very exciting.
He doesn't have remote control of me either. So if I decide as pilot in command to ignore his advice, that's all my choice to make.
Right.
So.
Well, he kind of has verbal command, right? It's fly by voice.
Yeah, right. But again,
turn left. Hey, watch what happens. It turns left.
It's my responsibility to fly the plane or the craft, and so anything that happens is my responsibility. Whether if he told me to dive and I followed his order, that would still be my responsibility because I am the pilot.
That makes
in command.
perfect sense.
So
no, I get it. I've been there. I'm not on a paramotor, but I understand.
Exactly.
So.
So
Well,
other than
that's
that,
very exciting. We congratulate you.
Yeah, thanks. It's really exciting stuff. I'm really happy about it.
Yeah, just another hobby to throw money at. That's kind of the way I look at it.
Hey, Z, Mike, I heard you had an exciting 4th of July.
I did.
Kind of weekend or long week.
Yeah.
So I hear you have a new type rating.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a type rating, but yes, I do. I don't know what they call it in the AMA world. It's a waiver, basically. But yes, I did receive my turbine waiver. Yeah, so I'm excited about that. So, yeah.
So how'd that happen? 1 minute you didn't have a plane, now all of a sudden you got your waiver. What happened? Were you flying for 24 hours straight, or what was up?
No, that's very true. I, obviously when Mike was here way back in February, I wound up with a yellow aircraft F-15. I just found one and I couldn't resist, and so I purchased it and.
You couldn't resist.
It's like a sickness. And then I spent from, February, March, somewhere around in there, all the way until, I think we've talked about it on our RC podcast before that, my turbine didn't really work right and I had to send it back to the factory. And so I finally got it back and I put it all in, had some issues with it, and which I probably won't go into. But yeah, it just wound up that I finally got it ready to go, and of course Spencer, he's been on the podcast. He goes, "Hey, let's go out and fly your airplane." And I was like, "I don't know." So he's like, "Yep, come on, it's now or never." We walked out, and he put me on the buddy box, and took off. And I think we posted a video not too long ago that had my initial solo flight. I had about 6 or 7 flights with him on the buddy box. The very first flight, I will tell you that he did the takeoff and landing, and then just let me take it in the air just to kind of get me used to, the speed. I will tell you that flying a foamy, all the ADFs that I fly, I'm not going to say that didn't help, because I think it did, from a speed and a reference standpoint. But honestly, my palms don't sweat near as much flying the foamy as it does flying the turbine.
No kidding. I mean,
the bottom of my feet were sweating. I mean, I was honestly just a bundle of nerves.
Well, dude, you just so the audience can understand, when you were working on the F-15, it was like a job. You would go to Spencer's, and you were there for almost 2 weeks straight, working 8 to 12-hour days.
Yeah, that's true.
Working on different things that you're trying to figure out, or would break, or you guys were modding or whatever.
Right.
And every day you'd call me up. Oh man, my best drive.
It was.
I'm like, what were you doing? Were you pulling weeds? Were you, washing all the windows at the house? No, I was working on the F-15, and we put in all these airlines and they weren't right, or we put in this system and all the servos worked except for one, and then I had to, go back in there, pull out the whole wiring harness, found out I had a bad, crimp or something.
Yeah.
Just silly things like that.
Right.
But, I mean, you were there, quite literally, for almost 2 weeks.
Yeah, it definitely, I can understand, I get a better appreciation for builders. One of the guys, Mike knows him, Harry Middleton, he's from California, and he is actually building some like a Spitfire or some World War II airplane. And he sent pictures to us on Facebook. It had like formers, and he cut them all out. So I really have an appreciation for how much time those guys put into this. one of the guys locally here, Wayne Lane, he built a big P-38. I think we've mentioned it before on a previous podcast.
Yeah.
But, it's done now too, and it's flown. And the amount of work that he put into it is just phenomenal. So putting, first of all, the investment is quite substantial, and you don't want to use inappropriate shortcuts, like you would. I would never blend something together, on this airplane. There is a level of responsibility involved in flying from the AMA standpoint that you're moving up to a much more complicated system and a more complicated aircraft. So
sure, you have something that can go 200 miles an hour and weighs anywhere from 30 to 50 pounds.
Right.
So,
right.
yeah.
So there is a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Just, involvement in putting this thing together. So everything has to be tight, connected, no loose ends, nothing just kind of rattling around. Mike makes fun of the last time he was here when we were flying the L-39, and there was like 4 things wrong with it, and we were still flying it, right? The nose gear wasn't working, something else was missing, the tail section was. But, it's different because you are flying something that weighs, 28, 30 pounds, and it can do some serious damage.
Aside from the cost as well.
Yeah, and the cost too. I mean, you just don't want to throw away that kind of money. But I will tell you that, in answer to your question, that, I did spend a lot of time, and unfortunately you get involved in this thing and you look up at the clock and you're like, okay, I'm going to start this thing around 8:00 in the morning. Next thing I knew, I was at Spencer's shop and he's like, dude, I'm going to bed. It's like 9:30 at night. And I'm like, where did the day go? I was just, it just went, okay, well, I'll be back tomorrow. And it was like, a full week, 7 days or so of me just spending all day long. I mean, I had the week off and I just worked on it. So,
one of the things
but it was my first time.
Oh, sorry. One of the things I really found interesting was, when I was there, you showed me that it had a leak. And,
that is correct.
In the I think it was the gear.
Yep, landing gear air system.
Yep, and I was like, well, wow, what are you gonna do? And he goes, well, I gotta go find the leak. And so that you told a little bit. I don't know, if you want to share that story now or not, but you talked a little bit about doing that. I just found that pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah, so the each gear has an air cylinder, and then the air cylinder actuates the gear either for, retracted or extended. And then inside, once you have everything hooked up, there's, 2 airlines per gear. They all come around and tee into a line, and then that line goes to a controller. But you have to have an air source, so you have a tank. And so the tank is in the back of the airplane. There's a line that comes up to the controller, and all of that kind of mixes together. Well, on this airplane, I also have what they call a fail-safe, which means if the air pressure drops below a certain PSI, my gear drops out so that I just don't lose all my air, and then my gear doesn't come out, and then I have to belly land, very expensive airplane. And so I can, it's digital. I can see a reading on there, and I can watch and time how the air pressure degrades over the course of time. It's a 5-minute flight. So what I would do is I fill it up to 90 PSI, push the throttle up, then I watch. I start my watch, or actually it's on the timer is on the radio. And so I put full throttle, watch the timer start down, and then basically it's 5-minute flight, and I watch to see how much air pressure I was losing, and I was losing quite a bit. And so basically, we had to go in and pinch off each individual airline and do this over again. So, you're talking 2, 4, 6 lines, 7 lines basically. So 7 different times we had to pinch off and wait the 5 minutes to see how long it was taking. That's time consuming and troublesome, and you got to make sure that you're not cutting the line when you pinch it off. Well, I have some hemostats, and we just crush the line so that it would be less air, and we found out that one of the landing gear did have a slight leak because it was still leaking, but we could slow it down. So instead of being like 1 PSI every 30 seconds, we could slow it down to 1 PSI every 50 seconds. And anyway, we wound up taking, or what I did, I wound up taking all the gear out and rebuilding the gear and relubing it. And I kept the lines because I think the lines were good, but I wound up, just rebuilding them all. And then the other thing that I did is the controller with the airlines are 1/8 inch lines, outside diameter, 1/8 outside diameter, and the fail-safe is a 1/4 inch. Well, in the hobby industry, they don't really have a step down from 4 millimeter to 2 millimeter. It goes 4 millimeter to 3 millimeter, 3 millimeter to 2 millimeter. You only have usually one step down. So I had 2 step down, barbs in there, and I think I had them safety wired, but I think that's where my leak was coming from. Well, I was chit-chatting with Jay one night, and the thought crossed my mind. It was something he said, and he doesn't even know because he was just talking to me about it. And I hung up from talking to him, and I thought, hey, I wonder if, I think he was talking about his trailer or something. And I went to go look for something, and it dawned on me that the automotive industry has those little step-down barbs. And sure enough, I found one, a pack of 10 on Amazon for like $4 that goes from a 4 millimeter to a 2 millimeter. So I bought those and replaced it, and now I get 1 PSI for every 3 minutes or something. So it's relatively, way better than it was, and that helps me out because now I get to go fly. I can put the gear up and down without it leaking.
Yeah, without worrying about it. Gosh, am I at the end of my time for the air? I better land this thing. But you have plenty of gas. I know, but I'm going to lose my wheels. Just a second.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't lose my wheels, but I had my my failsafe set fairly high. It was set up at about 50 psi, and when you lower the gear, it takes about 9 to 12 psi to actually lower the gear and lock it. And so I was start at 90. By the time I taxied out, got airborne, you're already leaking down, and then I pull the gear up. And then that PSI over the course of 5 minutes would get down to 50, and the gear would come out. And I'd be like, I don't want the gear to come out, right now, especially if I'm like screaming down out of the sky and some, half
right in the middle of your low pass.
Exactly. The gear comes out, rips right off the airplane. So what I wound up doing is lowering the PSI, and then I found, I chased the leak down, and then that way I can at least get down to, 50 PSI. It's not a problem at all.
So after talking with you guys and Barry and Spencer, I really got a real new outlook on fixing problems that I have. Like, I've got planes that got problems, but they don't stop it from flying. But
it's foam.
It is.
It'll fly.
But I have to say that mindset is probably dangerous, just not from a standpoint it's going to kill anybody or whatever, but just dangerous from a standpoint of being lackadaisical, and certainly can't do that in my paramotor life, right? And that's also given me a new perspective on those kinds of things as well. So it's like, when I look at the paramotor, I'm looking at everything. It's like, is the exhaust going to fall off? Is the, is the gas tank on? Do I have, is everything secure? Has it been leaking? All those kind of things. And so I've really sort of stepped up my mindset on my foam planes. Again, not that big of a deal, but I'm not as lackadaisical as I was since.
I kind of agree with you there, Mike, because this has given me, and I will tell you that the money has something to do with it, but this has given me a better understanding of how important it is to have the airplane set up correctly, to have the right equipment, to make sure that your equipment is reliable. Before I was telling Jay, on one of our conversations that, we used to throw in a couple $1 servo, go out and fly it. If it crashed, it was no big deal. But the more we put into this hobby, the more important it is to maintain the integrity of your equipment. And, I really wasn't thinking about it. And, Jay brought up the fact that I went out and got my turbine waiver. And sure enough, after about 8 or 10 flights, I had to change the wheels out. And I wasn't really thinking about changing wheels. I mean, why would you change wheels out? But, you're taking a 35-pound airplane and, you're doing 45 miles an hour when you touch down, and then you hit the brakes and, it wears the tires. They're just foam. And you really don't think about the friction of foam coming off of this hot.
They're not Goodyear. They're not Goodyear tires.
No,
right? With,
not Michelin either. But they're just foam. And so I switched them out. For kind of the check ride thing that I do, the flight, and we can kind of touch on that real quick. But it just you don't think about things like that. And when I got home after my flight, I heard something rattling around in the airplane and realized that one of my air tanks, the little the way that I have it secured to the airplane is through a little zip tie, and the little holder, the little holder that holds the zip tie had come loose. So I could hear I could hear it when I roll the airplane. I'd hear it go clunk clunk, and I'm like, "What the heck is that noise?" So I came in and landed and looked around it and see anything. Flew it one more time, and I could hear it again, and I'm like, "Okay, something's not right." So then I started kind of going through it and found that there's there's two of them, and the front one comes away from the wall, so it just kind of moves when I do a roll. It kind of goes clunk clunk, and you can hear it. So there's maintenance involved, which really is Jay's pretty good about maintenance, fixing airplanes, but normally because something happened to them. But you don't really think about the airplane needing maintenance just from a normal maintenance standpoint. Because some of the stuff we fly in electrics, I mean, what do? You can't really maintain your motor, right?
Nope, not at all.
So, but in this particular case, there is. The screws come loose.
Well, you got to deal with vibration, don't you, Mike?
No, not on a turbine.
Okay.
On a gas airplane, you do, but on the turbines, there's hardly any vibration, other than airframe just going through the air. So, but yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I'm glad to have wrapped it up. I have to give a shout out. I know on the Facebook page or our Park Flyer Podcast listeners group, I gave a shout out to the guys involved. And I have to really give the kudos to Spencer. He, kind of guided me through the initial flights and, kind of got me warmed up. Barry, he kind of took over, watched me fly a couple of times and gave me a few pointers. And then Tony Quist, who's the CD, he's actually seen me fly about 4 different times. Just from being at the field, literally, I was at the field probably 5 days out of the last week. So
you've been flying tons.
Yeah, I have, and especially the jet. So I wanted it to look good. He's seen me fly. So just to kind of give you how to get your turbine waiver if you're interested in one, or if you're listening to the podcast, you can email us and I can give you the link. But as far as the AMA is concerned, you basically have to fly in front of 2 turbine waiver holders. One of them can be just a turbine pilot, and the other one has to be a turbine pilot with a contest director or a CD affiliation. So Tony is a CD, and so I had to do a flight for Barry, basically, and I had to go up, and you have to do a pre-flight. You have to show that you understand the safety involved in flying the turbine. Fire extinguisher, obviously, you're not pointing the turbine at all the guys on the ramp with the foamies. They're very expensive gas airplanes, so you blow all that stuff, because when you go to full power on one of those things, it's producing 44
giant leaf blower.
Exactly. 20 or 30 pounds of thrust going right through the pit area, and just pretty much clean everybody out. So you have to be aware of that, and then you have to do a takeoff with on the center line, believe it or not, surprisingly. So you have to take off on the center line, and it can only be plus or minus a few degrees off. Then you have to go up in the air, clean the airplane up, and actually do a couple of maneuvers. You have to do a rolling and a looping type maneuver. So you can do like a half Cubanade or a full Cubanade, or you can do a hammerhead or whatever. Not a hammerhead in a jet, but you can do like a loop or vertical roll with I think they call it a reverse Cuban. So it's something with an up and a down. Then you have to do a high-speed circuit both ways. So you come down high speed one way, and then do a loop, and then do a high speed the other way. So I've actually gotten pretty good at the dairy turns with the F-15. It does really, really well. I will tell you, though, that this airplane, because it's kind of light gray, if you get it on a 45 going out past you and you roll it, you definitely lose sight of it. So first time that happened, Spencer leaned over and said, "Hey, just to let you know, if something was to happen, I don't have your airplane. So if you don't have it and I don't have it, nobody has it. So please don't do that anymore." I was like, okay, because you're flying it, you know what's going on, but because he's on a buddy box, he has to be able to see the airplane to take over. And if I got it out to where I can't see it or he can't see it and we don't know what's going on, it's going to be a disaster. So he's like, try not to do these rolling maneuvers on a 45 away from you. Make sure that you're in a turn so that you can see it. I was like, okay. Because I wasn't turning. I was just straight going out. What's that?
I said all those years of flying the tough wing. Yay,
yeah,
coming to you.
Exactly.
Help you out.
So anyway, then after you do the circuits, you have to come in and do a go-around. And the go-around shows basically your ability to, control the spool-up time. And just FYI, it's not like flying a EDF or a jet. It's not like flying an EDF or a prop. The spool-up time on this thing is very long. And Mike, you've been to our field. Actually, Jay, you have too. But as I was coming in and I crossed the numbers, I was at idle thrust. I gave it full throttle and did not get full thrust out the back of the jet until I crossed the dirt on the opposite end of the runway. So it's took
like 8 seconds or something, isn't it?
Yes, it's almost a full 8 seconds.
Yeah.
And so you have to think that far ahead of the airplane. And on one of my go-arounds, I was actually coming into land, and I really felt like I was going too fast. It was actually in front of Barry when I was flying for Barry, and I thought, gosh, this approach is just – it really feels like I'm fast. And so since I was controlling it, I went ahead and I went, let's go around. So I hit the throttle, full throttle. The airplane came in beautifully, just touched the wheels, never even touched the nose gear, just touched the mains, rolled on the mains, and lifted right off again. And Barry goes, wow, that was a nice touch and go, actually, But I was surprised at how long, it took, and it literally went off the end of the runway, just barely in ground effect. And then, eventually when the thrust kicks in, it's got plenty to go vertical. So you do a couple of those, and then actually Tony saw me do one or two of those, and then you got to come in and do an actual full stop to landing. And so I was lucky because Tony had seen me fly it 2 or 3 times before, and just real quick, I was gearing up for another flight with Barry, and Tony walked out and said, "Hey, Charlie and I are going to watch you fly. Just to let you know, we can't help you in any way, right? So you're pretty much on your own. But if it went anything like your last few flights, you should be okay. So don't get nervous. We're just going to watch you fly it." And I said, well, I get plenty of comments from the peanut gallery, because those guys are always, what the heck are you doing kind of thing. And he goes, yeah, we're not going to let them do that either. So this will be just you fly the airplane like you would normally fly it. Just have fun and don't mind us. So I did. I took off, rolled around, did a bunch of aerobatics, a couple turns and high speed, did all that stuff. He asked me during the flight, how much time do you fly? And I said, well, I have 1 gallon of gas, and so I've got about a 5-minute flight. But because I'm still new at this, I give myself, at least 1 or 2 go-arounds if something was to happen. And he said, that's good. That's a good decision. And so at 3 minutes and some change, I decided to go ahead and throw the gear out, come in, land. Touchdown, made it all the way to the very end of the runway. I mean, it literally stopped and, got turned around. And he said, oh, that's a good job. He said, your approaches and landings look really good, and you're on the center line every time. So I was pretty happy with it, and went back, and everybody was like, what was that like? How did it go? And basically he turned around to me and said, I signed your paperwork. So I was pretty happy. It took, just one flight.
Nice.
But
well, congratulations, Mike. That's awesome
exciting
stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. I'm pretty excited. So, yeah.
So speaking of
Looking
other
good.
firsts, I spent some time at Jay's a while back.
That's right. You were just down there, right?
Yep. And
He was playing hooky.
When I went down there, he gave me a airbrush that he had sitting around that he wasn't using. And
that's right. I think I gave him that one.
You gave me that.
Okay, well, you gave it to me.
It's gone
through
full
Jay.
circle.
How's that?
It's been passed around.
The circle of life.
It's a really loose.
No, I'm not
airbrush.
taking credit for it. I just yeah.
It's been passed around
it's
a lot. It's a really loose airbrush.
Yeah.
And so
exactly.
So anyway, I painted my first. I started with the wingtips. I painted my first plane, I haven't finished.
There you go. How'd that go?
It went pretty well. I used electrical tape since I didn't have any of the kind of tape that you use, so I used some electrical tape to make my curves, and that worked out pretty well. I'm not as good at getting the eyeball of, is it an actual curve, but I did measure to make sure they were at least somewhat symmetrical in terms of how much of the wing they took off.
Sure.
When I actually measured them, I think they were off by maybe an eighth or a 16th of an inch, so not very much.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to be too overly analytical about it all, but I did want it to be somewhat consistent. And so that went pretty well. I set up my own little paint booth. I have some cardboard boxes and for some backstop for that, so it doesn't go paint everything behind me, as I paint stuff.
And did you do this on the kitchen table or did you do a dining room table?
Oh no, I did it in the garage.
Oh, smart man! Right next to the new car.
I mix well, that's why I say I have my own paint box because don't want to paint the car or anything in the garage for that matter. But I did mix some of the paint in the kitchen, like I was just messing around with it, and it's like glue. That stuff. It's like, where did that drop come from? Oh crap! I just made another. Oh man! Now there's paint everywhere, and it didn't take too long for that to take place. And then of course you'll have it set up somewhere. I had to use the bottom of a water bottle to do my initial mix, so I didn't have to mess up a jar, and because I don't want to clean all that stuff. And it was sitting on something, and then I had a fan in the garage because it's bloody hot here, and of course the fan blew the box and all my stuff, so the paint hit the ground. I was like, okay, really? But
what are you talking about? I'm walking around with a shirt that still has orange paint on it. My wife looked at me. She's like, "What's on your chest?" I go, "Oh, that's my orange paint from Mike when he was here."
Yeah. So, but other than that, it's just some simple things. But quite frankly, and I have an older compressor. It doesn't have a tank. It just runs the whole time, and it doesn't have a gauge. So I don't really know how fast I'm running it at.
Right.
So
you're giving yourself some handicaps. Is what you're saying.
So I set it at what I felt was what I remembered the pressure of yours. Yeah. And then I sprayed it on in my paint booth thing, and to make paint come out, and it seemed to come out okay. And I had watched a couple of other videos about beginning painting just to kind of remind myself some of the things I learned from you, and it worked out. It worked out really nicely, actually, in terms of the paint coming out. At first, it was coming out like one of the things that's a real challenge for me is your hand gets cramped.
Initially, yeah. If you
I didn't paint for more than 5 or 10 minutes, but it's like, damn, that's killing my hand because you got to hold this really tiny.
Well,
thing.
that's probably just nervousness about painting because I don't, For me, it's a real light touch. You don't really grip it like you're gonna fall off.
Just holding it, just the position you have to put your fingers in to hold the damn thing, and so and then to be able to control the amount of paint and then how much air as well. So all that stuff is sort of new and challenging, and but other than that, it went pretty well. And because I'm not trying to fade or do anything tricky, I just kept painting it till it was dark and then I was done. That was it.
So can I offer just a little bit of advice? Sure. Are you willing to take some advice?
No, but go ahead.
Now, exactly. I don't want to hear anything from you. I will tell you that for having done it so long, eyeballing something in a curve like I do is easier for me. But when I first got started, the better way to do that is to take a piece of paper, trace out the piece of paper, the curve. Like if you wanted a wingtip and you wanted it to be like a half moon, like a half circle on your wingtip, trace on the piece of paper the half circle or the S or whatever, whatever you have that goes on the wingtip. Then take a light pencil and just draw, kind of the pencil line. Then take that same piece of paper, put it on the other wing upside down, and draw the same line. Now you can tape. When you tape, it's both the same. Does that make sense?
You're a lot like Jay in that all the advice I get from you is after I do
Is
stuff.
after
It's
the
always
fact.
after we're done.
Yeah. So,
Well,
if I
you
call
know,
ahead,
you know why we do
if
that?
I call ahead and ask that question, I'll be like, yeah, you just paid it. It's fine. No big deal. And then after I do it wrong, it's like, well, dude, you can do it this other way, right? And it's like, okay, really?
Because
That's
now
so
you'd
helpful.
understand.
I appreciate
Because
it.
now you get it. You go, wow. After all that, now I get it. That would be a much easier way,
Yes.
as opposed to if we just.
I
told
could have
you,
done
but-
that in like
yeah,
10 minutes
I mean,
instead of the 2 hours it already took me.
Well, we want you to learn. It's a learning
Yeah,
process.
a little negative reinforcement goes a long way.
And it's not just for you. We do have listeners, that are probably, hopefully, will try that on their own. So that's just another thing for them too. But yeah,
Well, and I want
if
our
there's
listeners,
a light pencil line, you can actually tape right along the pencil line, and it'll be fine.
I want our listeners to learn too that don't ask you guys questions
Sure.
until after you've done it.
Until after you've given it a try. That's just cruel. Well, it's
My
good.
fe-
I'm
one
glad you
feeling's
did it,
almost
though.
hurt.
It's it takes a lot to jump into something you haven't done before, and you were here and kind of saw the process, and I think it's great that you're kind of doing your own thing. And I do remember Jay was kind of going through something similar to this, and I did send him an airbrush, and I forgot that he had some already. So it's good that he was able to pass that along.
But this little guy, I mean, you and I used an airbrush that you had bought that was reasonably inexpensive. But this little guy, although it wasn't one of the popular ones that you had mentioned before, and it comes from the bottom instead of gravity fed, it sucks it up.
Yep,
Which is
it's siphon
good.
fed.
You're siphon fed, right, instead of gravity fed.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned that the gravity feds are better for whatever reasons. I'm not remembering why. But
No, it just depends on what you're doing. The siphon feeds are good for larger areas. The gravity feeds are good for real thin, like shading lines and that kind of thing. So,
okay,
but the ones that you and I used here were gravity fed as well.
right?
I mean,
but
they were siphon.
But this
siphon
thing
fed.
worked really well, given I had an
Sure.
old compressor, and like say, it doesn't even have a gauge on the compressor. I just
Right.
set it to what seemed like the right amount of air coming out.
So I will tell you another little thing that you probably should do. Zip by Harbor Freight or whatever hardware store that you have, and get a water filter. It's an air compressor. That's a water trap. It is just a little red filter that you screw on between your compressor and your hose line for the airbrush.
Good idea.
Because having a tank, you'll get more of it. Having the compressor just run air, you won't get as much. But that'll keep the water from going through the line and ruining your paint.
Yep, and so
And they're only like $2.99. I think they're $2.99. They're disposable, and it's just a little red ball that you screw on.
Yep. So anyway, that's I started painting that Turbo Twin. It's almost ready to go together. So I figured before I put it together, I would paint it up, and then and have it be ready to go.
That's perfect. And you actually sent us pictures. We'll have to post some, on the Facebook page so that people can see them, so that I can track your progress. It looks really, really good.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. I got some interesting ideas for it. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll have to get some more details on your.
But
painting
so that was
experience.
sort of a segue into my trip to Jay's, and I'd like Jay to sort of talk about that a little bit, because we really had a pretty good time, and I thought that.
Dude, I was glad when you left. That's all I can say. I don't normally say that when I have company, but I was really glad that when you left, because I was freaking tired. I think that's the most tired I've ever been.
What?
For a visit?
He sent me a text message.
honestly,
he sent me
this-
a text message the day after I left. He goes, "Dude, I just woke up. I went to bed right after you left, and I just woke up, and it was like the next day or whatever. It was like, I don't know. He
At
must have had
noon.
like 12 or 15 hours of sleep. That he never
You must have
does
been
that.
getting him up early, which when I'm
I
there,
was.
I'm
We
out
were
doing stuff, and then
Yeah, we were getting up. The interesting, well, and Jay was going to say this. The interesting thing about this is we decided after the first day I was there that we were going to change our cycle for flying and stuff. So we were getting up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, going out
6
to the
o'clock, yeah.
field, and then when it got hot and wind, the thermals would kick up a lot and the wind would kick up, we went back to the house, and that's when we would do all our other stuff that we would normally do at night. And so basically, we did our quote unquote siesta, although we weren't sleeping. We would do, plane building and fixing.
Right. Other
during
stuff
the day. Yeah. So.
Right.
Yeah.
And then did you go
Fixing
back to the
planes,
field
programming
at night
planes.
too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sort of. But the thing was, we went back to the field and then we flew again. So we were
Right.
flying
Twice
in the
a
morning
day.
and then twice a day. And so usually, when you come down, we're flying once a day. We fly, usually in the mornings or something.
Mm-hmm.
But with Mike, it was like work. It was like, get your ass out there, fly in the morning, fix everything, make any changes you got to make, charge up some batteries, and then go back out in the evening, fly hard until it gets dark, come home, then work on some planes some more, or,
Fix it all for in
do
the
some
morning.
other stuff,
Right.
and then take a quick nap, get up, and do it again.
Well, here was the
Well,
other
so
problem.
it was like
Here's
that
the other
for 3
problem,
days.
Mike, is that we had a very specific goal when we originally talked, and in the past I've stayed for more than a couple of days. In this case, it was a 3-day stay, if I remember right, maybe 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we had a lot to do because Jay and I were like, yeah, what about this and what about this and what about this and we want to try this and we want to do this. It's like, yeah, cool. So, and then one of them was the Talon, mini Talon. We hadn't been able to get that working. You and I hadn't been able to get that working, and Jay and I hadn't been able to get
Right.
it working. And that thing's been on the work table a long time, for a lot of hours. And so we spent
Sure.
the first day, at least,
that first day, yeah.
trying to get that electronics working. And what turns out, I had a broken wire. A broken freaking wire.
After all that?
After all that, it was a broken freaking wire. And
Wow.
it's my fault because I didn't check the wires because they shouldn't have been broken. It was a cable. It was a pre-made cable. Shouldn't have been broken, but somehow it got disconnected or whatever, and it was broke. And I was like, this is ridiculous, Jay. Like, what's happening? And we finally figured out, well, check. He's like, did you check the wires? I was like, no, I guess I didn't do that yet because I didn't think I needed to, whatever. And then we started checking it all, and it was tedious and painful because this was a solder-only connection set. That was the other problem. And then we had cable issue, like the ends were wrong. I mean, it was just too many weirdnesses. And then we tried to put it on Jay's plane, but his plane was sufficiently different that we couldn't. And that actually is what helped us figure out that it was a cable.
Yeah, what the problem was.
We just sort of fell into it. But still, if I had checked the cables so long ago, it would have been up and running in like no time at all. And it just...
Yeah, because after we discovered that problem, I mean, pretty much the rest of the build or the rest of the getting it ready actually didn't take that much. It didn't take that much time at all. And then it was just tweaking it every time we went out. We went out and flew. We would do something with it and figure out what we like, what we didn't like, that type of thing. So
Well, I have to put a disclaimer out there to our listeners that actually the RC hobby is supposed to be fun and relaxing and
it was
exciting.
fun. Well,
So far, we've saw how hard it is to fly turbos and then how hard it is to fly little foamies. But yeah,
no, it was fun. Now, we just had some frustration.
Right.
Okay, so we had some frustrating times, but honestly, when Mike was down here, I mean, with the goals that we had laid out, we pretty much got to 90 to 95% of the things, what we wanted to do, we got done. And then in the meantime, I mean, we flew our butts off, and we got a lot of flying in. I don't think we had too much destruction, while you were down here. And we just had a good time flying. I mean, and then the last day, Jim came out and flew with us, and pretty much, let's just say it was a perfect day. Nobody broke anything. Nobody took anything home in a plastic bag. And actually, compared to, I think it was the last time. I think the last time that AK Mike came down and flew with Jim, he had some problems. The RC gods were not smiling on him the last time.
On
was
Jim,
one of you guys when
they
you
weren't
were down
smiling on
here.
Jim? Oh, okay.
Yeah. But this time, everybody had a good flight. Good time, and we just flew our butts off.
So, Mike, when you were talking about your turbine being like a big leaf blower, it reminded me. I have a D39 Panther, D something Panther.
Yeah,
it's an
Yeah,
EDF,
right.
World models.
an old EDF
Right.
plane, and one of the times when we took off, I had landed it. It doesn't land very well. I was like, it doesn't have the characteristics for. It flies great, right? I love the plane for flying, but it's got this big old round handle on the bottom that you land it and just basically noses over almost every time. Anyway, after one of the landings, I took off with it, and the EDF happened to be running at my face at the time, and of course there was dirt in the in the fan. So I'm like, all of a sudden I get this, I have glasses on, but still I get this stuff in my eye. I'm like, I can't see. And he's like, what do you mean? You just took off. And so anyway, it was a challenge to blink to get my eyes going for to see the plane. You just reminded me of that when you're.
I can't see it. Tell me where it's at. That's
yeah,
funny.
exactly. It's but you made a good point about we were talking about the frustration. Jay said frustration, and you talked about it. It is really fun. I think there's a lot of people that get into this hobby, and they do get frustrated, and then they quit because it's very frustrating at times.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that.
But the reality is that I think it's simple enough. I don't want to make anybody feel bad, but at the same time, it's if you think about what you need to do and you slow down a little bit and work your way through the problem. I mean, every frustration Jay and I ran into, there was a great, nice answer for. Now, it took me a while to get around to them sometimes, but every quote unquote problem we ran into, there was a solution for it, and we just had to.
And it helps that we kind of think differently. Mm-hmm. Or our methodology of thinking, or how we attack a problem.
Sure,
and that helps a lot because I know there's a lot of times when you get frustrated, and you're a very smart person, and then I come along and I say something stupid, and then you're like, and then you like, okay, I'll try it, and then you try it and it works, and you're like, oh, I can't believe that worked,
yeah.
But it's I could see why it's kind of frustrating to you. It's just a different thought process. Not to say that I'm always right or you're always right, because like I said, sometimes I have a problem and I'm frustrated, and then you come over and you say something like, hey, I think XYZ, and I'm like, really? Come on, XYZ. Oh crap, it worked. All right. Well, thanks. But it's one of those things that's funny. It's frustrating. I don't know. It all works. I like having more heads looking at a problem, always solve the problem, as opposed to one person. You'll be frustrated when you just get hung up. So,
well,
anyway.
I'll tell you what, that, if you're flying by yourself, it's very difficult. And I know for Jay, having a couple of guys around in a field is not near as lucky as I am having this huge, big field to go fly at. But I will tell you that in the last, 8 months or year or whatever, being a part of this group, that there's pretty much every level that I can find. If I have a question about something, or if I, Spencer and I the other day were sitting there talking about something, and he's like, oh, man, I think this will work. And we did something, we did kind of try to do this, and it didn't work. And so he just picked up the phone and he called the guy, and the guy's like, oh, yeah, you got to do this, this, and this. Bingo, worked like a charm. So I think there is a lot of validity to sharing ideas, as long as when you come into this hobby, you're open to that sharing.
Right.
And I think sometimes we frustrate ourselves just by the virtue of us thinking that it's something that we can do, when in reality we're kind of overthinking. We think it's simple, but it's not really as simple as it sounds. We make it look easy. But even some of the guys I fly with on Tuesdays, they're like, oh, man, you make it look so easy. Well, yeah, there's a level of experience that comes with that. But at the same time, I learn things from them too. Even at my level, they'll do something and I'll be like, oh, what'd you do? And then they tell me and I'm like, oh, yeah, you shouldn't have done that. So, I'm learning that, you shouldn't do something like, whatever the case may be. So I think if you're in the hobby, if you're listening to us and you have a story to share, please jump on our Facebook page and give us a shout. And
most definitely,
yeah, we'd love to hear from you. It's always good to have. I know when Philip was down here, he's a listener, and I know he shares ideas with people as well. So he just sent us a Facebook page where he messed up an airplane. I think he crashed an airplane. And I was like, oh, I'll just put some spackling and some Gorilla Glue on it. And he's like, I don't think that'll work. And I was like, sure, this is the stuff you use. And I think he just posted he's going to give it a try. So it'll be exciting to hear from him and see if he actually gets it done. But if he's listening, Philip, you're welcome to email us and get ideas. Jay is great at it. Spencer's even better at it. He's put some foam airplanes together that were totally destroyed that look almost brand new. So it is doable.
The problem is, of course, the good part is at least, like Philip and those guys are listening and they're at least going to try.
Sure.
What frustrates me are the guys who you're trying to help and they don't listen to anything you have to say.
But that's a
you could be like, don't walk out in the road. There's a truck coming.
Right.
Yeah, well, blah blah blah.
He'll stop.
He'll stop, right? I can't believe that guy almost ran me over,
right.
Dude. Why'd you walk out there? That guy was doing 50.
Right.
Anyway, but you've seen him at the Mike and I back when we were in Alaska. We met a few guys like that just would never listen,
right.
or they were Mr. Know-It-All, and I don't know. It's one of those things that the good thing about him is you always get some good stories from those people.
Sure.
But they are very what's the word I'm looking for? Not frustrating, but they're very I don't know.
Entertaining.
Yeah, I guess they're entertaining. Because either everybody stops to watch what's going to happen
right,
if they
exactly.
fly their plane, or they go, "Hey, I fixed this with jelly beans in love."
Hey, Mark's going to fly, you guys. So this might be something to watch.
Everybody comes down
right?
as he walks out to the line. Everybody's like, "Oh, hey, let's watch this."
Yeah. Or once again, I've noticed this. We had a couple of guys up in Alaska. Like I said, when they come to the flight line, everybody would land and just get out of the air,
right.
So they could either watch or make sure that their plane didn't get hit,
sure.
type of thing. So
that's funny.
Anyway,
so while Mike was down there, did you fly anything? Did you get to fly your L-39, or how'd that work?
I did. I pretty much flew that the last day because unfortunately the evening before we tried to fly, and the landing gear, we were having difficulty with landing gear, and as it turned out, it got a bunch of dirt and dust, I guess, from the field, and the tolerances of the gear were too tight or whatever, and
right.
the dirt got in there, so we had to take it apart, a little sanding, a little lube, and then they were back to 100%, and the next day I flew, and I got a chance to break in my generator and charge my batteries out at the field, so I tried my setup for that, and it worked pretty well. My generator hiccuped a couple of times, but other than that, it worked out fantastic. And once again, I had some great flights, even though every time I flew, the wind would kick up. I don't know what was up with that. And of course, right before the last flight, I was coming for a landing. I was a little hot, and I was landing a little longer on the field. And as you know, I think I told you before, my field, I guess an electric company came out and they put up a little stockyard or whatever for some short time when they're doing work out there. So they've kind of cut off the last 1/3 of my landing field.
Gotcha.
So we've kind of tried to modify it and move it over. But anyway, it's a little shorter than what it was. So I was landing, was coming in long. I'm like, and I kind of heard these guys were going, "Hey, are you going to go around?" And I was like, "Nah, I'm going to land it. I'm in a good setup." So I cut a little slot, for an indicator slot, and I thought I had it. So I was going to thread the needle, I landed, and just as I thought I was going to go right down the slot and stop, I caught the tall grass right on the right-hand side, and it kind of drew the plane in, and it kind of, next thing you know, kind of tumbled or whatever. So unfortunately, I ripped off the right little nacelle, not the engine nacelle, but there's like a little fuel tank or something on the wingtip.
Right.
So it kind of ripped that off. But, some glue, whap, whap.
Good as new.
It's all fixed, and it's flying. I've flown it, like 10 times after that. So it's flying great.
Good.
So I wanted to add here before, I don't know how long we've been talking, but
yeah, it's almost
I wanted to add, we flew the fundraiser a couple times. Jay flew it once.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You took it down there, didn't you?
Yeah, and I flew it a couple times. I didn't. I have a story about the nose cone, too. I had ordered a nose cone to send to Jay's house to hopefully make it so I could put it on there. Well, it didn't make it to Jay's house. In fact, they didn't even send it to his house. They sent it to my house, and it showed up the day I got back.
Oh, you're kidding me.
But so on the upside, they sent it to my house. I didn't have to get it back from Jay. On the downside, they just sent it to a completely wrong address. But, whatever, that's fine. But one of the things that happened when Jay and I were flying was Jay flew it great. He didn't have any problems. Everything worked great. The first time I flew
it was kind of anticlimactic after you guys told me about it.
Yeah, he was like, "Really? This is like what's the big deal? You guys have been, whatever." So the third time that was flown, it was my last story. And Jay said, "I'll throw it for you this time." I said, "Okay, cool." Well, I didn't figure it out until after I took it off, but I didn't do any rudder, and so
nice.
That sucker just yawed over. And Jay's like, "Whoa, dude, I'm so sorry. I threw it wrong." It's like, "No, you had nothing to do with it." And he's like, "What?" I was like,
"Oh,
that was
see, you missed your
me.
opportunity. You could have blamed it all on Jay."
Oh no, that was all me. No, I didn't crash it. I didn't crash it.
Right.
It
That's
flew flying because he did a nice 45 when he threw it, so it just yawed, over in the air a little. And I was like, "Whoa! Oh, yeah, it was me." He's like, "What happened?" I forgot rudder. Why did it yaw like that? I said, "Well, here, you fly it." And then he was flying. I said, "Now give it full gas." And of course, you know what it does. It just kicks its butt over every time you gas it. And he's like, right. "Oh, okay, I get it." So anyway, it started.
So
as a
did
funny
you launch
little...
it up? Did you launch it inverted at all?
No, I won't do that till I'm not ready. Not ready yet.
Not ready to do that, huh?
Not yet.
All right.
So, but it's a cool plane. It's a really cool plane. Once again, it was anticlimactic for me just because you guys have worked out all the bugs.
That's true too.
Yeah. I like I said, I was kind of like, all right, I got to be ready. Mike's like, okay, well, you got to put right rudder when I launch it, you got to do it. I'm like, all right, I'm ready, go for it. Yeah, just like flies right out. Yeah, oh, no problem. I'm like, oh really? Oh, it wasn't like danger flying. I was on the edge of my seat, ready for it. Nothing happened, and it just kind of flew right wherever I wanted it. I was like, oh, yeah, well, it's a good plane. But I was expecting Squirrel City, a bag full of squirrels, and
squirrels juggling knives or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry to disappoint.
Exactly. Sorry.
So here's another thing that I found out since I've been back. I don't think Weekender Warehouse is stocking that right now. Like,
I think they're out of stock.
Well, but it's been a couple weeks.
Yeah, but I think they sold out on their whole stock, and now they got to wait for the next shipment to come in.
Oh, so okay. Well, I hope that's the case.
I didn't say that it said discontinued or anything.
That's usually how their sales go. So remember the last plane that we bought from them, the little trainer plane that we bought from them. They had on sale for like $30 or $50.
Like a Sky Surfer.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little Sky Surfer.
Or the Shark.
Same thing. They had a whole bunch of them. I told everybody. I thought Mike got one, but I got one, and Jim got one. And then after they were done with that sale, that was it. They're gone. They never had any more in stock. They just get rid of their stock.
So they just buy a big container and then sell all what they have.
Probably
didn't stop selling it, right? I mean, they still continue to make it. Because remember, we had that problem with the Fun Cub. Nobody had a Fun Cub for whoever knows, but you can buy them at the store today. I mean, they still have them on their website.
Well, I went to Multiplex's site, and they referred you to Weekend Warehouse, and they don't have them.
Oh, that's weird.
I think the Fun Cub is on its way out, and all those planes are on their way out for whatever reason.
Oh, I would be sad if the Funracer went away. That would be. I
know, because it is kind of fun. Yeah, and I have 2 nose cones in here. If you'd have told me, I could have shipped one to you.
Hey, sir, I just looked at the clock there. It looks like our hour's almost done.
It just went by so fast, I think.
It does zip by. So, real quick, before we end, what new projects or little shenanigans are you guys getting into?
Well, I'm doing the painting, so I'll be continuing to do that. The turbojet. So we didn't talk at all about it. I won't go into it too long, but I had problems with those retracts. We basically had to take apart every one of the retracts.
Oh, that's right.
Reset them internally for whatever reason, and then put them back together. I don't know if they just weren't lined up right or what, but after I did that, they work fine. And I found something that might work every time if I still have a problem. But I won't know until if I have a problem again, where I won't have to really take them apart. It's just something I can do to make them.
Yeah, that was one of the things we worked on at the house.
Yeah, it had to do with squeezing the casing, just so, and then once you did that, they seemed to work again. So I don't know what the deal was and why, but I had to take apart every one of the retracts I had to make them work.
Wow,
it was weird.
Luckily, there's only 3 of them.
That's correct.
So,
Well, he had more than that,
Yeah.
So
he had like 50 of
So
those you have to take apart. There's some
Well,
tiny
that and
screws in there.
the little screws wouldn't come out, or they'd strip, and we
Yeah.
were having other.
Right.
Other
Oh yeah, that
problems
was
and
fun
stuff.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a pain. They're not really meant to be taken apart and fixed, but I've done that once or twice too. I've had something happen and pulled it out, and there's been a wire that got disconnected, or something got turned just right, and it wouldn't, it lodged in there. So I know the frustration.
So, AZ Mike, you joined a new group. You sent me a link to join up. What new thing have you been?
Yeah, for me it's the trailer. I sent you a link for the RC trailer guys, and Spencer and I have been talking about it. I spent this last weekend, I guess, putting insulation in my trailer and trying to hurt myself because it was 115 degrees outside, and I was working there, and I think I must have gone through about 5 gallons of water. But partially why my face is all red because I've been out in the sun.
Oh, because you were in an oven.
I was in an oven. Yes, that's why I was half baked.
A little mini oven.
But yeah, I put. I'm redoing the trailer to be more RC friendly, I guess, and to be a little nicer. So I will. I'll try to post a couple of photos in there so that you can see them. But yeah, that's my project at the moment. That and wound up with a new Skymaster L39. So
Dude, you got a sickness for sure.
I know I do. So
for the listeners, this is not the L39 that we got.
Not a free wing. No.
Yeah, not a free wing one. This is another turbine.
That's
this
true.
Guy, he needs to stop.
Yeah, that's number 4 actually.
Hi, my name is Mike Bone.
That's right.
Hi, Mike.
That's just right. I've got an addiction.
I'm addicted to turbine jets.
Yeah,
Hi,
well,
Mike.
I don't know. I'm really excited about the L39 because we've been flying the small one, the little 80 millimeter one, and I've had so much fun with this. And actually, this weekend Barry and I were out. Actually, I got my turbine waiver, and then he and I jumped in there and flew he flew the F-22 and I flew the L-39. So we went out there and flew formation. It was pretty fun. So
Cool.
yeah, it's good, but I'm excited. This one is, I think it's 90 or 93 inches long. So it's a 1/5 scale, I believe, 155. So it's fairly large.
It just so happens you have a
But,
trailer big enough to fit that.
This is the reason why the trailer's being redone. Yes, that is correct. Because now I will have, at least 3 of these plus all my little EDFs going to the field. It does require a little more room.
Are you putting a mid deck in there?
It'll have 3 shelves in it. Yep.
Wow. Well, smacks.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll keep you informed on how that's working. But for now, just working on plane stuff in the trailer and flying.
Gotcha.
Flying a lot.
How about you, Jay?
Flying a lot. For me, like you said, the good part was you got my butt motivated, and I was able to get down, mow the field for your visit.
Good.
And then shortly after that, I had tore into my trailer. I just have a little small 5x8 trailer. And I tore into it, and it was nothing like Mike's trailer. Instead of everything being screwed together, they decided to use little teeny tiny microscopic little staples that are impossible to pull out, and it's a pain in the ass. But I've been working my way through it. So I too am probably the next week or so going to get my insulation and put it all in. Other than that, the other thing that for some weird reason I just got this bug that bit me, and I went out and I bought a 3D printer. So it should be showing up, I think, tomorrow.
Very cool. We're gonna have to hear about that.
I'm going down that little dark hole, but I've, of course, been on Thingiverse, which you can look up all sorts of little cool, nifty little printable things. And I've been looking at all the RC parts and things to help us out, and there are a bunch. So during Mike's visit, he came down and he modified his FPV goggles. And they're one of the problems with them, because we're old men, we have to have our reading glasses in them, or they have to have enough distance so that you can see the lettering in the visor itself. And in Mike's particular visors, they're too short. There's not enough room, so he was able to mod it and get some reading glasses in there, and it's kind of cool. He made it work. Well, I found there's a mod for that I can 3D print, and it basically lengthens the focal length by extending it out. So it's pretty cool. So I'm just like, wow, they got that in there. So I've just been spending like the past 2 or 3 days just looking at all the different things, like your cockpit, AZ Mike. I've been looking at cockpits and stuff after seeing the cockpit you got for your your F-18, I think it was
the F-15. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, F-15. So after that little fiasco, I was like, well, certainly I could do something better.
Sure,
so anyway,
sure.
I looked into that and so I'm pretty excited. I'm interested to see what 3D products I can produce or print out.
Yeah, I've got a whole list of them for you. So yeah, get that sucker going.
Well, Jay, it was really nice knowing you, because now we're going to lose you for sure to the internet and figuring out how to work that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I told AK Mike about it a couple of days ago, and of course he brought up it's going to take a lot of schmoozing and finagling and figuring out and whatever, and I'm like, yeah. So he was definitely my downer or my reality, because at first I'm like, oh, Cloud9, this is going to be so easy, and he's like, what are you talking about? I don't remember anybody saying it is easy.
Right. Well,
anyone can do it.
Just to kind of give you the heads up, I've got Spencer has one, and I have a neighbor down the road that you and I have talked to, Adam, and he has 4. Right. So he's very familiar with it. So if you get stuck or whatever, we've got resources to get you.
That was part of the reason why I kind of did this, because I was like, oh, I happen to know some people who do this.
You do, yeah. So this will be good for you. Well, very cool. That's exciting to hear. Man, this summer's already smoking by. Hope everybody had a good 4th of July, and this month is cruising by as well. So it'll be wintertime before you know it. Well, wow, hour's up already too. So,
yep.
I guess we'll wrap it up. We appreciate you listening to us today. If you have any comments or suggestions, feel free to go on our Park Flyer Podcast listeners group on Facebook and post a post. We appreciate everyone who's posting on it right now, and we're getting some good information from the guys down in San Antonio and out in North Carolina. So we're really excited about that. And if you have any suggestions for topics or whatever, you can shoot us an email at parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com. That'll help us out. But yeah, send some pictures or post some pictures for us, or email us and let us know what you're flying. So from here in Arizona, I'm Michael.
From Jay in the hills of Texas.
And it's just AK Mike in Texas.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Let's fly.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.